Hey there everyone, welcome back to our EK-AIO, and we continue with the next topic right here. Thanks for listening to Attila explaining all the latest pride and joy from EK. And so here they are with me again, Attila as a technical marketing manager and Joe Robey as a lead R&D designer. So we are going to talk about latest products from EK. And probably this will be the most interesting webinar of all this week, right? So what are we cooking, Attila?
Actually, we will be showing some new stuff in the next one. So make sure that you stay around for the next one. There we will show all of the best, latest goodies that we want to show. But right now we can also start talking about our latest products. One of them being the CPU block, which we launched a month ago or 2 months ago, Joe, something like that. People have been asking, why is it so expensive? And here we have some nice examples, and Joe will tell us more, like, why is it really so expensive?
For sure. So, as you all know already, there's no compromises with Magnitude, and every single piece starts life as a solid block of material. This chunk here is just the insert, solid brass, and that's whether you have a Plexi block, an acetal block, the insides always start as this solid brass. And you can see here the second operation, the back side still solid, and the details on the front side are all machined. We have a lot of spherical tool work on this to really minimize the flow, the drag and the restriction as much as possible. And the final piece, just a fraction of the weight of how it started. And this approach goes through on every single part. So even the accent, which we could have easily cut down to a little injection molding or a hollow extrusion, we start with a solid chunk. So even the minor aesthetic pieces, everything's a substantial piece of material to begin with, and this is what goes into a brass top. And it shows because the end product is half a kilo for a small block if you have the full nickel.
Yeah, it's really amazing that even the smallest parts on the Magnitude was thought out to choose the best materials, and that's what, of course, quantum at the end is all about. How about you mentioned the heaviness of the block itself. Is this any problem for a CPU or maybe a motherboard itself because it's so heavy, for example?
Actually, the mounting pressure prescribed by Intel is 80 newtons per corner, so it's far outweighed by the pressure applied with the springs than the actual weight of the block. Until we got to a 20 kilo block, it wouldn't be a problem.
And the best option here is that you can mate it by yourself, whichever color you can choose and everything. So that's why Magnitude is the point of it. Okay, what about the whole idea of the Magnitude? How it became alive, for example? Why did you even decide to make this special block?
So we had a really beautiful concept to begin with, and to do it the real justice, we knew we needed to completely go all out on every aspect, not just performance, not just the design, but everything we could possibly do, and really push what's possible with CPU blocks and deliver exactly what our customers are looking for. And we already have the perfect product with velocity at the price point everyone expects, so we could afford to go crazy, and the market's responded really well. Everyone really likes it, and we're selling way more than I expected.
Yep.
That's the best thing at the end. What about the options? We will make any similar products like that with Magnitude also for GPU, for example?
We have also talked about this yesterday, and yes, we will also make similar Magnitude style products. Next one in line is obviously the STR4 CPU block for AMD. Here you can see a sample of it. We are also using the same approach where we have 5 separate key pieces of the block. So the frame, a static frame, which you can also swap out for red, green, blue colors, and then the top, and then the insert itself. So we are taking the exact same approach, and also what is raising the price is that each and every other CPU block that we have mostly use simple stamped laser cut frames, which are quite flat. But here we have also the frame itself starts out as a square chunk of aluminum, out of which we then get the frame itself, which is the aesthetic main piece of the block here.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pure, actually, aesthetics right here.
This is a real indulgence for us, and it's fantastic to see this. This aluminium block actually gets machined all the way down to just 46 grams.
Yeah.
Okay, there's one question from the audience. Is there any temperature difference between the Plexi and the full nickel version? So
actually, there is, but Joe will explain technically why is it there.
So typically, you always have a slightly different deflection in a Plexi or acetal block, and the copper doesn't hold its shape so precisely. Most blocks, like Velocity and a classic block, they actually have an interference which pushes out the middle of the cold plate. So on a full nickel, you have a bit more strength and it gets pushed out a bit further. We compensate for it, but it's difficult to be so precise. So there's a number of steps in Magnitude taken to make sure they all perform consistently. And the cold plate itself, in its final process, is actually turned rather than machined in a milling machine. So it has a very subtle curvature, and that helps all versions to make the same contact. So we're not forcing the curve into it, but it's already there. Okay. So we've managed to close the gap in performance between acetal and nickel, and it's shown that an acetal Magnitude outperforms a full nickel Velocity. So
and that's why, of course, at the end, there's also price difference because it's different material, of course.
Basically, it is only because the brass top, it is just more rigid, so that it can be pushed down onto the CPU harder, so that the contact surface is better. That is the only reason. Not because it is from metal, so that it would be pulling out heat from the block. It is just a physical structural difference. Yeah.
And talking about the differences, comparing the Magnitude and the Velocity block itself, is there any difference in performance, and why?
Yeah, so depending on CPU, obviously across the versions we see between 2 and maybe as high as 11 degrees difference in a loop between them both. And that's really a testament to how well Magnitudes fit the CPU. And we could only do that by making so many different SKUs with tailored geometry for each platform.
Okay. There is actually one interesting question. The difference between PETG or acrylic, and which one do you guys prefer?
Do you want to go first?
I will always say acrylic. So for sure, it's a very similar material, both thermosoftening plastics, but acrylic has a slightly higher melting temperature. So some people don't like that. But personally, I find it has a wider window to work, that it stays workable. And even though it takes a little bit longer to get it to that temperature, it's much easier to control. And feels really fluid and nice when it's bending, and then afterwards it's instantly rigid. So it really holds its shape perfectly.
Yeah, thanks.
If you ask me now, I'm gonna say glass. I'm gonna say glass, but before I was only using 16 millimeter tubes, and I was always going acrylic, just only acrylic. But when I started working with the smaller tubes, I kind of prefer PETG more. I don't know why. Maybe it is just faster to work with. This is just my preference lately. So if it's a small tube, PETG. If it's 16 mil, then it's acrylic. But lately, I have been really amazed with glass tubing. So I think that I will be sticking to glass tubing.
And the best answer actually is that just try it yourself and you see the difference, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a very nice chess board right here. Why is this here? Obviously, we're not playing chess. What are we trying to show with that?
We are trying to show our extension of the fitting lineup. So we will be launching extenders quite very soon. We will be having male, female, 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 and male, male. Did I say them all? Ranging from 7 to 14, and we will have also 28 millimeter high extenders, and also we have the new finish which we showed yesterday, and we are happy to say that all of the fittings, all of the extenders, all of the angle fittings will be available in all these 4 finishes. So nickel, black, and we have the new satin titanium finish. Basically, we will be bringing around 400 new fitting SKUs in the following months, but this is just the start, so that we show that what we are bringing. Maybe can Joe tell a bit more about these really small fittings, which we can see.
So we're actually going to be dividing the torque line a little bit, and we'll have duplicates of a few products. So we'll have a torque and an alternative, which will be a torque micro. Now, the real purpose with this is to help out in builds where you have really tight spots. So micro will be concentrating around the 16.5 millimeter external diameter, whereas, as you know now from our chunky torques, they're 23, really substantial, and it's a bit of a marmite. So some people are really a fan of the new torques, and will definitely keep the precision and the machine nature across all the new parts. But torques are really focusing on reducing size as much as possible. So these 2 fittings are actually both for 12 millimeter hard tube, and the torque has its accent ring and a compression ring, whereas the micro is 1 solid part. Now, this is perfect for situations where the tube is trapped. On a distribution plate or in between graphics cards, you often have just straight runs of tubing, and both ends are captive inside the fittings. So there's no need for a compression ring, and these guys really let you make a tight look on the tubing.
We thought out every option, and at the end, if you don't know anything about water cooling, just buy those fittings and you can play chess with it, right?
True.
Okay, we mentioned the colors of the fittings. Will there be any new colors in future for fittings?
Actually, we will be also bringing back the locking rings. So right now, all of the locking rings are made from brass, but we will be also bringing back the aluminum locking rings, which means we could also be anodizing them to green, red, blue, yellow, gold. So all of the colors that we already have with the rings, meaning that you would be able to really build your own fitting. So to have a black barb, then you have a blue ring, and then you can have a red locking ring. So these will open up really big options about really building your own fitting. You can even make a flag, so make a, I don't know, German flag.
So all options actually.
Yeah, so
Actually, that's good. One question is here about the distribution plate. We would think in the future to make any copper or nickel distribution plates.
I heard this from a few customers already, and it really excites me. I can't fathom how heavy it's going to be. When you hold a piece of brass that's just this big, it's really substantial already. If it's a 300 millimeter high distribution plate, I'm not sure there's a case built strong enough to take it yet. But
And it might damage someone in the end.
you're not going to drop that build.
Okay, there is one question from Leo Waldock for Joe, for you.
hi Leo.
Do we have Marmite in Slovenia?
What?
We don't. I don't think so.
So there you go.
We have some other very divisive palettes, right?
Okay, there's a big request for a debate. You mentioned the glass tubes and so on. So glass versus metal, let's say tubing. What do you guys think?
I mean, metal tubings look really nice, but they also hide the liquid inside. So it is up to the final user what does he prefer best. Liquid cooling, I would like to show off the liquid, but I also like stealthy pieces. So like metal tubing, which is nickel, black, or something like that, would also look good. So because I have just recently discovered glass, I would be going for glass, and also I was also discovering that you can actually bend glass tubes at home. You can heat it up and you can bend it. You would have to practice it so that it is nice, but if you have metal tubing, then you would have to buy the metal bending tube, and then it also depends on the size of the tube, can you bend it or not. Also, if it's already nickel plated, painted, then you can bend them, because then you would destroy the finish on it. So mostly people pre-bended, pre-bend brass tubes, copper tubes, and then they get them nickel. So it is a higher level thing working with metal tubes, if you ask me.
Okay. What about you, Joe?
I really like metal tubes. I have nickel-plated tubes in my daily PC at home, and against acetal they look fantastic. So I think that's something we need.
And I agree to Joe. Sorry, Attila. I like metal better. Okay, there's one question about the titanium fittings.
Yeah.
I know that this would be like extremely difficult to make and expensive, but what about the color possibilities? There would be amazing if you can change the color with anodizing and so at home.
I mean, not many people can do anodizing at home, but also anodizing is limited only to aluminum parts. So meaning only that the external parts of the fitting, like the ring, can be aluminum. If we would make other parts of the fitting aluminum, which would be flowing liquid, then we would be mixing metals inside a loop, and this would not end well because of the galvanic corrosion which
exactly,
would occur. So sorry, no.
We do have a lot of products now with aluminium exterior parts. So Magnitude, the FLT series, the reflections, and it's quite easy to strip. the anodizing in an acid at home quite safely. If you dispose of everything right, you can remove the anodization, and I'm sure you could get them re-anodized.
Actually, I have done that at home quite a few times, so maybe we can write a blog post about that, or like something, how could you strip? And I think it's starting to rain heavily, so that if you hear some background noise, people,
It's raining, yeah.
it has just started raining heavily, and I think I've closed the windows on my car so we can continue.
Okay. Someone wants to know if he can get the shirts that you guys have. They prefer orange, probably.
Yes, you can get the shirts. We have them in our shop. You can just go to the last tab, Apparel, or you just search EK Crew and you will find all of the shirts. You have hoodies and you have also caps, so you can buy all of these shirts inside our shop.
And become the part of the EK Crew. Okay.
Exactly.
This question has been present many times in this week, but the size of the tubing, the performance, so is it bigger and performing better, smaller, performing worse?
Usually bigger is better, but not in this case.
Okay.
Not in this case. So like we said, because of the every single port is 11 millimeters wide or something like that.
The thread itself is 11.8, so the biggest feasible size we can make the inside is 10 millimeters. So to avoid continuous change in the cross section in the loop, 10 millimeter ID tube is perfect.
Okay. Okay, we've covered a lot of materials right now, but someone wants to know, what about a little bit more exotic materials, like carbon fiber, for example? Do you have any plans for that in future?
We don't have any plans, because simply working with that much SKUs, I mean, number of actual products inside our shop, it is quite hard, but you can find them online, eBay. So if you really want it, you can find it, but when will it be available inside our shop? That is a question of time, and it might not be quite soon.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the EXPO. Who can say a few words about this?
You mean the VRM bridge?
Exactly.
EXPO, it is only our internal code name for this, and Joe will tell, I think, more about the mounting mechanism and why is it special.
Yeah, so this was a really fun project internally, actually. We were just looking for a simple solution at first for the misalignment of the VRM bridge, which comes supplied on the Maximus formula motherboards, and our CPU block. It's always a real pain with slightly out ports that they're so close together you can't make a neat change. So we thought maybe we can bend a special tube that helps, and then the idea for one small bridge came, and then we quickly expanded that to the whole bridge that we see now. And that covers all 4 ports. And you have a barb which first installs on each port, and then the APO simply slides over, you push in the acetal standout, and one screw locks it in place.
Almost like a plug and play.
Just like that. It's a really slick way to install a monoblock, and actually I think it helps with installing the CPU and getting a good mount and a good spread on the paste, because you have a conventional CPU block with springs from the front, and then you cover it with the bridge.
Okay. Then someone wants to know if they can buy a complete chessboard right here, but I think that you can buy the fittings and you can find a chessboard anywhere, right?
We haven't made the entire numbers. How much will it cost? But we will do it because we have received quite a few requests for this. Maybe we will just do a do a few sets and just use them as gifts, but maybe one day we will also have it in the shop, or we will just list what do you need, which fittings, and how much in order to make a chess piece.
Great. Okay, we've talked about the extender fitting. Can you explain maybe the sizes? What are the options for the sizes of all the extender fittings?
So right now we have 7, 14, and 28 millimeter sizes. These may seem like random sizes at first, but this is a bit of a tactical move on our part, because actually the offset of most ports now that we're using on the distribution plates especially, they're all based around this 7 millimeter spacing. So this unites quite nicely with our existing products, with the GPU blocks, with Magnitude. Velocity still has its slightly narrower spacing from Supremacy, but everything else is moving towards this spacing, and if we can unify everything, then we can really simplify the loop for people. So.
Also, one more important thing about these extender fittings is that older extender fittings had the hex slot only from one side. So if you had your extender stuck somewhere, you could use the Allen key to unscrew them. But now you would have the hex key slot from both sides, so that if you have it stuck in a way that you can access it from only one side, you would still be able to use the inside Allen key tool rather than having to like use tools from the outside, which would potentially damage the outer finish. So
it's an important upgrade
yes,
at the end
yes.
also. Someone wants to know, what about gold-plated blocks, or let's say GPU blocks, CPU blocks? We've had this something in the past, but what about now? Because people like, especially with the Plexi top, it looks good. So do you have any plans with that?
We have made a gold-plated Titan RTX block, but it was using a acetal black top. So right then, when we were making that, we were having a internal debate: should we make it also Plexi? Should we just make it black palm? And in the end, I have lost, and we have only made the black version. But if we have enough requests, then surely we will make these things, because it is only just the outer plating, which is not hard to do. It is just a single process, so we can make these gold plated products if we get enough requests.
Then we'll always think about it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, of course. Then let's talk a little bit about CPU block versus monoblock. Is this just a matter of a design, or is a difference with the performance also at the end?
So really functionally, obviously you get to incorporate the VRMs and cool those, and everybody wants to cool the VRMs on their GPU, so why not on your motherboard also? A long time ago, we always had separate blocks, a VRM block and a chipset block when it was needed. Now it's not needed so often, and a CPU block. So the monoblock really combines that into a simple to install package. You have just 2 ports. You don't need to worry so much about fittings. And it also helps us to kind of unify the port locations a little bit. So it really simplifies the installation of what was a complex thing to achieve, right, with the VRM block. So in a really design-oriented loop, it helps, and people love to see as much coolant as they can, as much nickel, as much stainless steel, all the nice machine parts, and you get a longer LED strip, of course, so a few more diodes, and that doesn't hurt.
Exactly. And talking about the fittings, again, we've touched this point, but the angled ones, in the previous, let's say, versions, we have options like a female, female, male, female, and so on. What about with the new quantum fittings? Will there be all options available?
We will be bringing quite a lot of fittings. So like we said, we will first step will be the extenders, static extender. Then we will have the rotary ones, and then the next step, I think we will be bringing female 45-degree and also 90-degree adapter fitting, so that you can build loops without bending tubes. And then afterwards,
and also we can say, because someone also wants to know about the dual 45-degree version.
I'm not sure about the dual 45. Joe, what do you know about it? Will we be doing it?
At this moment, we don't have it, but we have some similar functional replacements. So it was often used to do something that it didn't do that well. If you just needed to make an offset with it, and most people weren't using it to make a crazy angle, right? They were just using it to make either a longer 90 or an offset. So we will actually make an offset fitting, and you can use a 90 in combination with extenders to achieve the longer one. So functionally, we will replace everything, but some products won't be repeated.
Exactly. Okay, thank you. Someone wants to know if we will ever make a phone app for the EK-AIO. Now we've launched the Connect, we have the software and everything, but what about for the phones?
I hope we will. We don't have any plans. Honestly, I was supporting this idea, but in the end we have just made a Windows application for it. I hope that one day we will have it, but at the moment we don't have any special plans about when we will have this going on. So right now we are just working on like making the app work better and the more functions, and then later we might be also thinking about a app for the phone so that you can access your information through the phone as well.
Okay, and talking about the other parts of the, let's say, of the loop also, now we offer the Monarch RAM water block. Is there any plan for a D-RGB RAM Monarch water block?
So this is one of the things that stopped. I know yesterday I mentioned my prototype block that was at CES a long time ago, a quantum-looking RAM block, and D-RGB was the thing that really stopped it. Everyone wanted to incorporate it, and it was really a beautiful design without it. So I think we'll need to stop and include D-RGB before it comes.
The RGB
sadly,
never stops, right?
Sadly, that's the way it's going. But yeah, it did slow down that project a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, now there is one interesting topic also. So the badge for EK. Now, if you mount the CPU in different variations, will we ever consider to put, let's say, a badge only separately inside the box so the user can put it in the way like he wants to put it?
We're just really worried that the way the user wants to put it might be at a like 10-degree angle that looks horrible. So we like to place it ourselves to be sure that it's perfect, and that's really the sign that we put EK's brand behind every product. So it's nice touch to position it at the end of assembly.
But we always think about it that the way it is, it's usually the best way, right? So, but of course, you can also put it off if you want, right?
if like someone really wants one, he can always write to our support team, and then he can pull it off, and then he can get the new badge, and he can put it on the way that he wants. This is really.
Yeah, but be careful not to damage the block, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The tubes itself are really actually the important topic right now, and someone wants to know which size of the hard tubing is Attila, and Joe, your favorite?
Glass. So my favorite tubing for a very long while was 16. millimeter, maybe because I was working in larger cases before, but now that I have a wife and we have a restrained space, I like also have to think about the PC size. So now the PC is also getting smaller. So if you want to work in a smaller PC, obviously smaller tubes work better. So lately I have been moving on to smaller and smaller tubes. So now in my PC I have the smallest tube available, 12 millimeter OD, and the internal is I think 8 millimeter big because it's now glass tubing.
Okay, Joe, what about you?
Actually, just this afternoon, I was cutting some 60 millimeter tubing for a big surprise we have in the next show. Small spoiler, it has tubes.
Yeah, that's enough.
And I was thinking to myself, this feels quite substantial to anything I've done before. And I think in 100 builds, I'd never had 60 millimeter tube yet. And I shocked myself that I was using it.
So you are going opposite than me.
Yeah.
So you want smaller, you want bigger.
Yeah,
Okay, that's okay.
I think the first tools that I bought were for 1013, and then I moved to 1012, and I stuck with that ever since. But I really like 1014. The thicker wall makes it a bit easier to work. You can put a bit more heat into it without it going completely soft and distorting on the outside. So I think 1014 is the nicest compromise to work with.
Okay. Talking about the flow indicator, why doesn't EK have also the flow sensor with the flow indicator together, so it's connected to the Connect, for example?
Actually, we will have it coming soon.
And that's all.
You have heard the word coming soon quite a few times during this expo, and I think that we will have the flow meter, the actual flow meter by the end of this month, which will be working with our RGB fan and RGB controller, so that you can get a readout of the flow. It is a simple little black flow indicator with a straight flow through setup.
Okay, and returning back to the VRMs, for example, so let's say that we have a 10900K CPU, and is it necessary to cool the VRMs as well, or with the monoblock, or are the VRM cooling on motherboards nowadays more advanced than they used to be, and they don't need cooling anymore?
So this really depends, actually a lot of variables, because you know, a 10900K could be operating at 100 watts forever in a gaming PC where you're not overclocking it, or you could be rendering with 5.2 gigahertz 24/7, and then it's a very different story as to how your motherboard will feel about that. And also the efficiency of the VRMs on the motherboard, how good the original heatsink was. So I think if you're buying a really elite motherboard, let's say, the highest end parts with the most efficient VRMs and the best heatsink, then I think it's best to go with a CPU block, and the best CPU block you can get. But in the middle of things where the board might not be so good, maybe it's a board that has a fan as part of the VRM assembly and you want to take it off so it's always silent, then Monoblocks is a great choice.
Okay, and touching a little bit about the accessories, now we offer also those tools that help you bend the tubes. Did we ever consider like selling pre-bent tubes already? This is a specific question actually about chrome or copper tubes, but in general, pre-bent tubes.
So we will just have to say it again, coming soon. We are actually currently working to bringing pre-bent tubes, acrylic pre-bent tubes, so 12 millimeter, 14 millimeter, and also 16 millimeter. It will be a pack of more tubes, so it will be four, 5, or 6 tubes. We haven't decided fully yet, so you could buy a full pack of pre-bent tubes, which will be enough for a full build if you are using them wisely. So that's also coming. I don't know when, a month maximum to something like that.
So right now, in the past, let's say 40 minutes, we heard a lot of coming soons.
Exactly.
So
most of the things which you can see inside our PDF, which you can download from the EXPO page. Most of the products which you can see in there, some of them are already launched, but most of them will be available within a month or something like that. So actually, we have been saving up all of the good things that we show here, that we actually launch them, not just show them and never launch them.
okay, and touching a little bit the distribution plates. Now we launched a lot of distribution plates lately. Are there any plans with the built thermal sensors or flow meters inside the distribution plates in the future?
Yep, that's definitely something that we'll consider. And you can see we've added the flow indicator and a little more to it. There's 1 million stop plugs available, so there's nothing stopping you adding one of our new temperature sensors to the loop. We think it would be nice if everything remains as slick as it can and these things still went out to the connect, so you have it inside the system and not a screen on every product. But definitely I can see potential that in the future the distribution plate will become the center of all of the electronics, and this is really the best place to house if you're going to have a screen, if you're going to have indicators and sensors, and this is the place to show the information because it's not constrained by the hardware. Trying to cram it all onto a GPU block terminal that's this big, we can either ruin the design of the block or we don't do it. So
Yeah, exactly.
lighting details there, but information, I think the distribution plate is the place that will come.
We will also see what will happen on the case market, because currently we are seeing a single very popular case which hasn't happened before. Last time when we had it, it was 15 years ago when we first had what was the brand name? Chieftech. So that was the last time when I saw that everyone was having the same case. So right now we're having the same thing with the Lian Li. So we will also see what will happen on the case market. If it stays the single most popular case, we could be also making special distro plates which will have more electronics in them for that case. But like making something like that for 5, 6, 7 different cases would be a bit difficult.
Okay, now before we wrap this up, because of the big surprise that we are planning right now, I will just let through one last question. Daisy chain fans.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Daisy chaining fans lets you tie one fan to the next fan without having to buy extension cables and just making more cables inside your case. And actually all of our upcoming fans will have these features.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, we have to wrap this up because we're on a tight schedule, but we are preparing, as we said from the beginning, one big surprise. And I just want to say thank you, guys. You have any last words for the people watching us?
Coming soon.
Another coming soon.
Very, very soon.
Very soon, yeah. Stay with us. The link to the next big surprise will be in the live chat. Thanks all for watching. Thanks for all the questions. And just sit back for a few minutes now because you will be amazed. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.